Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Balance with Britt podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Alex Adele today. She is a women's health and hormone nutritionist who helps women with the side effects of the pill, cycle syncing, and balancing hormones. And today, the two of us are going to be talking all about the birth control pill. So welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here talking about this topic and sharing all the goodies of women's health.
Absolutely. I am so excited because, I don't know about you, but I know for myself growing up, at a young age, going to the doctor, concerned about, my very painful periods and the irregular cycles that I was experiencing. And I was left with the birth control pill and how it would, magically solve my problems. It would make my periods less painful. It would create more consistency in my cycle. And that's kind of all I was told. And I'm wondering if maybe you have a story that's similar.
Oh gosh. I'm like, do you want the long version or the short version? So, nutrition wise, I was always kind of in this field of nutrition. My mom is pretty healthy, always feeding us the whole wheat bread instead of the white bread growing up. So my brother and I were the only kids at school that did not have white bread and, didn't have sugary cereal in the morning. And like even our baby food was homemade. Like my mom did a really good job setting us up. So then I kind of took that with me. Mm-hmm. And she would always talk about like, eat your blueberries because they're full of antioxidants. And so growing up, I was like super young, like 10 or 11, being like, what are antioxidants? Like, I love blueberries and they're my favorite fruit. Like, why are they so good for me? You're always telling me how good they are. So then I just took that with me. And then eventually in high school, I discovered that a nutritionist or a dietitian was a career. So I could tell people what to eat for a living. And I was like, great, sign me up. So, and from a young age, I was vegetarian as well since I was about 12. And so just went on to study nutrition. And then still young, around the age of 13, I had also had very painful periods. My first period was so heavy and so painful. And it was hard to think what my period was like back then because I was put on the pill so young. So at the age of 13, one morning, it was like I had skipped so many days of school because my periods were so heavy and so painful. And this day was just particularly painful. So my mom was like, if you're in that much pain, we're going to the hospital. Like, this is not normal. So we went to the hospital and I'm one of those people who I never kind of put myself first. So when you go into Emerge and they ask, what's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's like, it's just a 6, just lying a little bit just to say I'm fine. It's all good. It's just a 6, downplaying everything as I typically do. And then we sat down and we were waiting in the emergency room. And then I just started getting sick and throwing up. And so my mom was like, nope, something's wrong. And I told her I lied, that my pain wasn't a 6. It was like a 12 on a scale of 10. So she was like, no, like we have to go back and tell her right now that your pain is worse than it is. So I told her my pain is a lot worse. And then they got me into a bed and did an ultrasound. And it turns out that I had a cyst that was rupturing. And it was also twisting and torting my ovary. So I had a cyst that had burst and that's what was causing all the pain. So they rushed me into emergency surgery. They were like, do you want to know what's happening? And I was like, nope, don't tell me a single thing. Because if you tell me how you're going to slice and cut me open, I don't want to know. So they did that. And then recovery was not so great. And they told me that they cut out my left ovary along with the cyst and all that stuff because when it was twisting and torting, it had cut off the oxygen circulation. So then right after that, the surgeon and my family doctor said, we're putting you on the birth control pill because this is going to stop the cysts, fix your periods, all this magical promises. And I was like, this sounds amazing. And they said, you're going to be on it until you want to get pregnant, come off for pregnancy, get pregnant, go right back on after pregnancy until menopause, basically. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to take this pill for the rest of my life. And then it was like trying out dozens of different pills. One was causing low moods and depression, and the other one was causing anger, and then one was worsening my acne, and then it was like this and that. So it took tons of different pills until we found one that was decent, and stayed on it for a very long time. Tried to come off it once in university because my mom had read an article that it wasn't great for fertility. So she said, well, in the summertime, like, why don't you just take a little break? So I did, and then ended up in the hospital for like severely painful, heavy periods, and went right back on. And then when I went to study holistic nutrition, I learned the right way to come off, and then did it the right way. I prepped my body for about a year, came off, and zero symptoms. It was all good. And now it's been 4 years and fine. No pregnancy scares, no nothing, feeling great, no pill. I know my body better than I ever have before. So that's a little bit of my story.
That is wild. I mean, first off, you are so lucky that, you had that influence from your mom at such a young age with, like talking about antioxidants and having those nutrient dense foods, because she's like so far ahead of her time. Like, that's crazy.
Yep. I feel very fortunate and very lucky that she taught me those things, and I just took it with me.
Yeah. And also, like, I just feel like that makes you a little bit more aware of your body when you're like aware of the foods and the types of foods that you're putting into it. So yeah, being able to listen to your body and the signals that it's sending you. But it can get confusing when, you're visiting the doctor, and you're being told that this pill is going to solve all of your problems. What are your thoughts on, people who are being told that they should be on the pill to quote unquote balance their hormones?
I've thought about this so much because I do get a lot of women and people with periods coming into my practice saying this exact thing. A doctor said that take this one pill and it'll fix all your problems. And it sounds great in concept. Who doesn't want a quick fix pill that's just going to, you take it once a day and then it'll just fix everything, balance all your hormones, clear your skin, whatever. But the problem is that we're not taught about all the side effects, how, going on the pill can cause all sorts of things like digestive issues and depression and things like that. And then when they want to come off, when I was put on it, the doctor made it seem like just come off and you'll get pregnant, no problem. But that's not the case for a lot of women because the pill can mask a lot of issues that it's not as easy as coming off and getting pregnant. You could have underlying PCOS or endometriosis or something that the pill is just kind of like a Band-Aid because it stops that connection from your brain to your ovaries. So they're not communicating. And the pill basically says, nope, we're all good. We're getting the hormones we need, so you don't need to make any. So it signals to the body, you're already making hormones, don't make any. So it shuts off your entire reproductive system during that time and then causes all sorts of other issues.
I think that's really interesting that you mentioned, because when it comes to the birth control pill, and even, with my experience, I went to the doctor for irregular periods and for painful periods, and rather than try and identify the issue behind it, the root, as a holistic nutritionist, we're always looking for the root cause and the root of an issue. And for me, in hindsight, I can now see that a lot of my issues, especially since anxiety was a really big factor as well, and the PMS, and for me, a lot of my issues were rooted in my gut, though I had no idea, which in hindsight makes complete sense, like on antibiotics all the time as a kid. And yeah, I didn't have that stellar influence, like with the sugary cereals and the white bread. And so if a more of a root cause approach was taken, I would have addressed my gut health issues. My periods might have become more normal, less painful. But rather you are given kind of this Band-Aid. And I think that's a really important distinction to make, is that you are not necessarily addressing the root issue.
Yeah, it's like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Like, medications don't fix the root cause. It's all about symptom management. So it's like, oh, here's your symptom. You have irregular periods. instantly the pill,
Mhm.
right? So it's not fixing anything, it's just masking everything.
Hmm. And I mean, much like yourself, I went through a lot of different pills before I found one that worked for me. I still, I would get spotting here and there, or, my mood was insanely impacted as an already anxious person. I was like anxiety overload to the point where like it was really impacting my life. And I was dealing with weight gain and just all of these negative side effects. And which ultimately led me to make that decision to go off the pill. But before we talk about how to go off of it, maybe it would be good for our listeners to have an understanding of what those side effects of the pill are and what are those downstream effects that it can have impacts on.
Hmm. So many. There's there's a giant list.
Yeah.
If you've taken the pill, it comes, with that newspaper warning label, and it's insane the amount of side effects. But the funny thing is, so I don't know about you, but my doctor didn't really talk to me about the side effects. She
Mm-mm.
briefly mentioned, okay, it might change your moods and, different things like that may or may not cause weight gain. But yeah, I wasn't aware of like blood clots and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So we can go through the list, but I'm curious, did your doctor walk you through
No,
any of the symptoms? No. Okay.
no. My doctor was a man close to retirement, and like I feel like it was just like, here you go.
Hmm.
And I
Fix your problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember I was in the office with my mom at the time. And even then, that's like kind of uncomfortable because you assume birth control pill and they like want to know about like your sexual history and things like that.
Hmm.
But I'm like, I
Hmm.
just have insanely painful periods. Like, how can we like get to the root of that? And no,
No.
just handed a box.
Yeah. Here's your box. Go on your merry way.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like that's the experience that most women and people with periods have, is just take this
Hmm.
and, be on your way.
Yeah.
La la la, it'll fix everything. So, what they're not telling you is the side effects are nutrient depletions.
Hmm.
So, just about all your B vitamins, which are essential for energy and brain health and mood, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A, selenium, magnesium, which is crucial for over 500 enzymatic activities in the
Hmm.
body. You need magnesium. Zinc, which is good for skin health and immune health. CoQ10, which is protective for your heart. So, it depletes all those vitamins, minerals, nutrients.
Hmm.
Also, cancer, it increases your risk of breast cancer and cervical cancer up to 60%, which is
Wow.
insane. 60.
Yeah.
If you've been taking it for over 5 years, it increases your risk. Blood clots and stroke, which has been a hot topic in the last year or so.
Hmm.
Digestive issues, you're at a 300% increased risk of developing Crohn's if you take
Wow.
the pill for any amount of time, because it acts like an antibiotic on your gut health. So 300% increased risk of Crohn's if you've been on the pill. Mood changes, like we talked about, anxiety, depression. Typically, most women who go on the pill also shortly after get a prescription for antidepressants because it does
Hmm.
change your mood that much. It can cause missing and irregular periods as well, or light, heavy periods. So it changes all that. Possible infertility, weight gain, acne, low libido, vaginal dryness, pain with sex, thyroid, all sorts of other stuff. If you are curious, there you can, go searching online, and there's a giant list of every single side effect on there, but those are the big ones.
It's crazy to think about, like, and we're not being told any of this. And what I find really interesting too is even like when it comes to the nutrient depletions that you outlined, yeah, so many of those nutrients are so important in so many things, but also our stress management. If we think about B vitamins, magnesium, our antioxidant vitamins like vitamin A, C, and E.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are those depletions really important for our adrenals and our stress response, but then it's also impacting our digestion, which again, mind gut connection, and our mood, probably consequently from all of those other things. And it's no wonder we feel loopy when we're taking them.
Yep. It's just crazy how, instead of being prescribed the pill and then an antidepressant, we should be, if a woman or a person with a period or uterus decides to take the pill, getting a multivitamin or a prenatal, if you're low in iron. So just taking something that can help at least get some of those nutrients back, especially because typically the age group of people who are on the pill are in those teens and 20s. And what do you eat like when you're in your teens and 20s? Pizza, pop at a sleepover, things like that. You're stressed out like crazy because you think, oh my gosh, you have to make a big decision at the end of high school to go into a university or a college and decide what you're going to be, as you're entering adulthood. And it's just such a stressful time. So throw the pill on top of already being in such a heightened state just exacerbates everything and can worsen nutrient depletions. And of course, at that age too, you're staying up, doing all-nighters, doing book reports. And so add sleep deprivation on top of that. And it's just a hot mess.
It's like a hurricane of a perfect storm for, gut issues, digestive issues, anxiety, depression. And because like you said, adding lost sleep on top of that, which can guarantee you're pulling all-nighters, been there. Every hour of lost sleep, we're increasing that cortisol production. And it's just like, it's such a perfect storm. Now, would you say that those nutrient depletions hold true when it comes to someone who's taking maybe like a low estrogen birth control or like a copper IUD, or if they're trying to, make a better decision by doing a low hormone option? Was that something that they would still would be dealing with?
Great question. It's a lot worse when it's the pill compared to the IUD because the pill is going into your stomach.
Yeah.
So that's where it kind of acts like an antibiotic and wipes out all your good gut bugs compared to something like the copper IUD, which is non-hormonal. So it's still, let's say we're talking about the non-copper IUD. So a regular IUD will still deliver synthetic hormones. So it still is impacting your mood and your weight and your adrenals and your stress and all that compared to the copper IUD is non-hormonal. There's lots of other issues with that. So for birth control, if you want like an easy one and done, the copper IUD is something that I would suggest. But copper IUD still poses a lot of issues because copper depletes zinc. They fight for absorption. So it's kind of like, okay, well now your zinc is being depleted way more. And so that's something to keep in mind, which again, most people are not aware of that. So keeping that in mind. And then with IUD, I've just heard nightmare story after nightmare story of it dislodging or like scraping the side of the uterine wall and, getting stuck and it being pulled out during intercourse and all sorts of different stuff. And then something we'll talk about later is in coming off of something like the pill or an IUD, like doctors giving you trouble because, the pill you can just stop, but the copper IUD, you have to go to your doctor to get taken out. And I've just heard a number of stories of doctors saying, well, if it's working for you, you don't need to take it out. And that's a whole other topic I'm sure we'll get into later in this conversation. But the pill, I would say, is probably the worst for those nutrient depletions specifically.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Before we talk about, coming off the pill or, having that IUD taken out and how you can support yourself, if someone is listening and they're just like, this is an important contraceptive tool for me, how can I support myself while still on the pill? What would you say to those people?
Good question. I do get that a lot as well. Someone who's maybe not ready, is very intimidated, has heard about the side effects of coming off like post-birth control syndrome. And they're like, you know what? It's working for me right now. And I'm not in a place to either financially have kids or mentally have kids or anything like that. So I'm like, no problem. You can stay on. The protocol looks very, very similar while being on to I'm helping you come off essentially. So first and foremost, nutrient depletions. And all the steps that I'm going to share, I do share in an ebook that I'm releasing soon. So I have this whole chart that is like a roadmap and walks you through step by step. But basically, first step, replenish those nutrients that are depleted. So whether that's through changing your diet or getting a multivitamin or targeted supplements, stepping up your nutrition. If you're not getting lots of leafy greens and veggies and, colorful foods and fruits, and if your diet's mostly fast food, then that's a big, big area to focus on is stepping up your nutrition. Along with that too is blood sugar. So while we're focusing on nutrition, balancing your blood sugar levels, and then gut health, like we just mentioned in the side effects, with it, kind of putting a number on your gut health, that's important. Liver to help detoxify out, the chemicals and the burden that the synthetic hormones are putting on your liver, detoxing liver, nourishing adrenals, stress, other things, toxins, sleep, all that type of stuff. We help support basically every area, mentally, spiritually, physically, anywhere that we can to help support while you're staying on it.
That's amazing. And that ebook sounds like such a great resource because this is a lot for someone who's, not familiar and, with those nutrient depletions and what types of foods they need to focus on and how they can step up their nutrition. So, that is very cool and a very like all encompassing. I like how you bring sleep into it as well, and adrenal health and stress support. And because all of those things, like, this is what I love about holistic nutrition and holistic wellness is everything is connected. If you're stressed, your hormones are going to be impacted. If you're not sleeping well, your hormones are going to be impacted. If you're not getting, that nourishment or that balance in your meals, there's impacts. So that's incredibly helpful for those women who are, thinking that they're not ready. And that's fine too. I've encountered that with clients as well. And at the end of the day, this is your health story and you're writing it. And so maybe another really cool conversation to have is, okay, if someone might be ready to come off the pill, but is concerned about birth control methods, not wanting to get pregnant, what advice do you have for people who, yes, aren't ready to get pregnant, but really is ready to get off the pill? And so that, those contraception methods.
Well, one of my favorite contraception methods is the fertility awareness method. So this is one that I've been using for the last 4 years. So it's FAM for short. It involves tracking your menstrual cycle, all your signs and symptoms, your basal body temperature every morning, evaluating your cervical fluid and your cervical placement. It sounds very intimidating. Like, I don't know what this means. What are these words? What the heck? It's something I walk through. This is like first and foremost, when I work one-on-one with clients, this is like first step. If you are not looking to have a baby right now and you're coming off contraceptive, or if you are looking to get pregnant, even the fertility awareness method is great just to track your body. So this is something I teach very in depth of how to track your cervical fluid and, how to track your temperature on a chart or on your phone. So I promise you'll learn so much about your body, and it's the best thing ever once you actually get to learn, like, oh, my cervical mucus does change all throughout the month. It changes about 4 times throughout the month, and it tells you when you're ovulating, and that's just my favorite. So I've been doing that for about 4 years now and love it. Haven't had, any scares or anything. I've learned so much about my body that I didn't know was normal. Like it's a big topic on TikTok about cervical fluid not being normal. And so changing that conversation that it is normal and it does change. So sometimes it might look like an egg white. Sometimes it might look like lotion. So sometimes it's thick and creamy, and sometimes it's, clear and stretchy. So if done correctly, it's about 95 to 99% effective.
Wow.
Very similar to birth control. So it's non-invasive, non-hormonal. You learn about your body, no side effects. So that is probably my go-to. The only cons would be that if your cycle is irregular, so more like a PCOS or, someone who's not getting regular periods, it's a little bit more difficult to track. In which case, I would suggest pairing it with some sort of smart technology like Temp Drop or Ava or Daisy, pairing it with some smart technology and testing hormones and all that good stuff.
Very cool. So do you like take your temperature every morning on that method? And you just, and you log it. Do you have an app that you use that you log it, or are you like pen to paper kind of person?
I haven't actually tried the pen to paper. Mostly because I just don't have a printer that works. So
Yeah.
I have no way of printing the charts. Normally, I am a pen to paper girl for everything else, like journals, like calendars. Give me a pen and paper. But for this one, I just use my app. So when my timer in the morning goes off to wake me up, I grab my thermometer. It's just one that was like $10 or $15 on Amazon, and pop it under my tongue first thing before getting up, before water, before going to the bathroom, anything, put it under my tongue. It takes a little bit. And once it beeps, it's ready. And I just look at the temperature and log it in the Kindara app.
Okay.
I like that one because you can just see a graph. So unfortunately, I have to use multiple apps for, tracking my cycle, and then a different app for tracking basal body temperature. But I like Kindara for basal body temperature. And then Clue is my favorite app for tracking my period and signs and symptoms and, all my ovulation window, all that type of stuff.
Oh, perfect. I'll definitely like link all of those in the show notes. So if you're listening, head there after you listen. And yeah, I imagine it's one of those things where maybe initially when you're adding these things into your routine, it can almost seem a little bit intimidating or maybe overwhelming, but it's these small things that really add up. And once you get into that routine, it's like anything, it's like easier to like maintain it. I know when I was dealing with all of the side effects of the pill, and I remember like switching from one pill to another, and every time I switched, my body was just like rebelling against it, and dealing with acne and the weight gain and the mood imbalance. So finally, when I was it was around the time where when I finished my holistic nutrition education, that I was like, you know what? Yeah, this isn't for me. I went off of the pill, and I think I probably could have done it in a better, well, I don't know. I was going to say I could have done it in a better way, but I do think I was aware of the nutrients that I needed to restore, and the dietary habits and those lifestyle factors involved. And it took a while for me to find that balance after going off of the pill. Like I want to say like probably about a year. And I was lucky enough to like, be aware of the supplements that would be supportive. And I worked with my naturopath on it. So I am in a spot now where like I'm actually like really shocked because again, at the age of 17, I went to the doctor for these issues. I come off the pill. I was probably 26 or 27. So that's like 10 years. Coming off the pill, same issues, obviously, because I never addressed them. And now, like, I'm super, super lucky. My period is like to the day on, like, I track it on an app, and my app will be like, it's coming tomorrow. And I'm like, I know it's coming tomorrow. And like PMS, literally, sometimes I'll forget to look at my app, and I don't know because I am not as good at tracking as you are. I don't do the temperature readings, but I'm curious to try it out. In that sometimes I'll just forget that it's coming, and then all of a sudden it comes, and I look at my app and it's like, your period is coming today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I had no clue, no PMS, no bloating. Like
That's the dream.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like absolutely shocked that I've been able to get to this point because 17-year-old me was like just struggling so much. And every month isn't like that. Like sometimes I do experience some, maybe the day before my period, I might notice some increased irritability or something like that. But honestly, like it's night and day from what it was. Like I remember feeling like being a woman having a uterus is hard because like you're in pain for 5 days. And then, it was for me, it was like 2 weeks before my period. I was feeling terrible. And then it's like, I have a week of feeling good. How is this fair?
Mhm.
So being to a point where like, yeah, my period now is like 3 days, maybe a day of some irritability beforehand, if that. And I feel like the rest of the month I'm able to like enjoy my life. And that's
Yes.
hard to get to that point.
It takes a lot of work, and supplements and stress management is a big one, and learning your food triggers. And
Mhm.
but oh yeah, once you get to that point and it's like no PMS and feeling good and like your period is easy, and you're not bleeding through whatever it is, your cup or your tampons or your pads, and it's just like it feels so good to finally be at that point where you're just like, yeah, I can tell, the around the day when it's going to come, because I still do get some slight PMS symptoms, like
Mhm.
all of a sudden just like tired, a little bit more fatigued,
Yep.
like slight achy, and I'm like, I know it's coming, compared to ovulation
Yep.
where I could talk for days, like I'm glowing, I'm social, like I just know the different phases of my body, and then I plan my whole work around my cycle and my workout and eating. And now that I know all the different phases, it's like just planning everything around that.
Actually, that's a really great conversation for us to dive into too, is, it's completely normal for us to experience these ebbs and flows because we do have hormonal shifts throughout the month, unlike men who have like that constant hormonal state. We are ebbing and flowing in all of these different elements. So how do you organize your business and your workouts and everything around your cycle?
I do have a whole course on this called Synced.
Oh,
So
cool.
there is like tons and tons and tons of detail, but basically Cole's Notes version for like businessy lifestyle wise.
Mhm.
So during my period is a time to reconnect. So I like journaling and being by myself, watching Netflix, relaxing. If I feel like moving, it's more of like a yoga flow or stretching. So no intense, no big
Mhm.
social events. If I can prevent that from happening, then I do. I just relax. After menstruation, so when you're done bleeding, you head into a phase called follicular phase.
Mhm.
And this is kind of like spring. So things are starting anew. So if you want to try, a new sport, or if you've never done rock climbing, or if you want to try rollerblading, or like a new dance class, or this is the time to try new things, get, new fresh ideas. And then after that, it's ovulation. So this is a time to be social, go out on dates, plan a date night. If you're trying for a baby, this is when you want to try to conceive. You're typically more social and like glowy and fiery, and that's a great phase. And then after that is luteal phase. So it's kind of like wrapping up, heading into, I kind of split up luteal because it's 2 weeks. So it's kind of like the first week is still off of ovulation. So you're still feeling a lot of energy, hit workouts. But then that week right before your period, it's time to wrap it up, turn inwards. Time to, if you have like a lot of paper stuff for work or tasks that are due, this is the time to do it. So, like, wrap up projects, do your taxes during this phase, wrap everything up during that phase, and then you're back at menstruation.
That's so powerful because it's like, let's work with our body, not against
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is something that I talk to clients often about, more so when it comes to like stress and adrenal fatigue. It's like, why are we pushing ourselves to wake up at 6 a.m. and do the hit workout?
Yeah.
Let's listen to our body.
Mm-hmm.
If we're stressed, let's sleep in, which is what you need, and maybe focus on more restorative forms of exercise. And when
Yeah.
it comes to, yeah, like our menstrual cycle, why are we working against ourselves to push ourselves through a hit workout during our period, or the days leading up to it, when like our body wants us to add in more restorative forms of exercise?
Exactly. And it's all about listening. So once you start to tune in and listen to your cycle, listen to the signs and symptoms, listen to how you're feeling, you'll start to understand what you need. So maybe
Mhm,
you do need to sleep in. And then
mhm.
maybe, during ovulation, you want to get up and do a HIIT workout and hang out with your friends and, go to the gym and whatever it is. But maybe you don't. So just listening to what you need at that time for sure, for sure, for sure.
And even like, I mean, we are lucky enough being, entrepreneurs and having control of our own schedule, but like, yeah, there might be times in the month where we are feeling more creative, and that's the time to like batch content and write blog posts.
Exactly. Yep.
And there's also times where you're not feeling that creative side, and not to beat yourself up about it, because it's just it's our biological drive.
Exactly. Yep. When I was actually launching the synced course, I did it all through the phase of my cycle. And it was interesting because I actually did it all within the month. So it, one, kept me on task, but two, I came up with the idea during menstruation, planned it all out during my follicular phase, recorded everything during ovulation when you're typically more
Mhm.
attractive and glowy and chatty. And then, wrapped it all up during luteal phase. That first week, I edited everything, uploaded it. And then at the end of the luteal phase, I was able to like plan a launch schedule and all that stuff, launched it. And then during menstruation, I just, relaxed. And then after menstruation, I was promoting it and it was good to go.
Oh my gosh, that is so crazy. That
Yeah.
is
So it
like,
was like the best thing ever because during each phase, it was like I was so inspired, to come up with
yeah.
the idea, plan the ideas, and it just worked so much better. And it was the easiest I've ever done anything in my life.
That is so wild, and just like such a testament to what you do and who you help and who you work with. So that is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting a little bit, I think now is the time where I would really love to dive into speaking to those listeners who are like, yeah, the pill is not supporting me anymore. I am ready to come off of it. What advice do you have for those people? This is a big
Mm-hmm.
question.
It's such a big question, but I'm
Sorry.
so glad you asked because I have thoughts on this. I have, my own thoughts and then seeing hundreds of clients. And yeah, I've had people come to me who are just like, my doctor is fighting me on this and I want to come off. I know I'm ready to come off, but I'm scared of, what my doctor is going to say, what my family's going to say, what my partner is going to say. So, sometimes being a nutritionist, you almost have to have some training in therapy as well, because sometimes it does end up being a therapy session of, talking with someone and just saying, okay, at the end of the day, this is your body and seeing what your body needs. So at the end of the day, doctors have tons and tons of training, but they don't know what it's like in your body. Only you know what it's like in your body. So if the pill is not serving you anymore, if it doesn't feel good, if you're experiencing all sorts of different PMS or heavy periods or mood changes, irritability, depression, whatever it is, if it doesn't feel right in your body, that's your choice. You have a right to speak up for yourself and say, this is my choice. And if your
Mhm,
doctor is fighting it, fighting you on it, or another health practitioner is saying something, then change. Just
mhm,
find a new practitioner who aligns with your values.
mhm,
So yeah, if it's not serving you anymore and it doesn't feel good, then that's your choice.
mhm,
So it's your life, your body, you are in charge. And sometimes we just need that reminder to be like, okay, no, this is my life. And I know the doctors have studied and they have lots of education, but they don't know how I'm feeling. And if you're
mhm,
like me, downplaying all your symptoms, saying it's a 6 instead of a 12, then they're going according to what you're saying as well. So sometimes you just have to be honest and think like, okay, is how painful is this and different stuff. So actually coming to terms with that.
mhm.
And then, yeah, I know it's a bit trickier with IUD. So I have had a client who, upon chatting with me and listening to my podcast and learning online about all these different things and the side effects that we talked about earlier, they decided, okay, I no longer want to be on the IUD. I'm ready to start fertility awareness method.
Mhm.
And she went to her doctor and just said, I'm ready to come off. It's not serving me anymore. And, ready to do something new. I want to come off the IUD. Like explicitly saying that to the doctor, I want to come off. And the doctor just said, well, like, has it kept you from being pregnant? And she said, well, yeah. And he said, so it's working for you. And she was like, I guess because I'm not pregnant. So yes, even though, she wasn't having a lot of sex or intercourse or anything like that. So she's like, I guess it's working. And he was like, okay, then we're just going to keep you on it. And then she just was so drained from, because it takes a lot of energy to
For
have that
sure.
conversation, to
Yeah.
start the conversation, and then for her to be shut down immediately. She didn't have any more energy in her to be like, no, wait, I do want to come off, and like stepping up for yourself.
Yeah.
And so it was just totally draining. And then she was just like, okay, and felt, embarrassed and ashamed, and then just left keeping the IUD in her, and then had this conversation with me. And I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, that's so inappropriate for the doctor to
Yeah.
not listen to you. And of course, doctors have that 15-minute window, and you're trying to
Yeah.
fit all your symptoms into a 15-minute window. So that was tough. And then we had a conversation. I just said, well, whenever you're ready to go back, mentally, physically, emotionally, maybe writing like a script, a
Yeah.
practice script on a piece of paper, and then going into the doctor and saying, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm leaving this office with no IUD,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, it's my body. And that's a tough conversation to have. But sometimes people just need a reminder that it's your body, your choice. So that's kind of what I would have to say.
Yeah. And like, I know I'm sure you operate by the same principles, but for me, when I'm working with clients, it is so important for me to be like, this is my recommendation, but it is your body and it's up to you to implement. And if something
Exactly.
doesn't feel right for you, don't do it. And I think that is so frustrating to hear because, yeah, it is a lot to go into a doctor and I'd be like, you've thought about this for a long time. She put a lot of thought in that decision, and to be dismissed is
Mm-hmm.
so discouraging. And I know I kind of went through something similar when I was really struggling with anxiety, and I did the same thing you did though. I went in and they're like, "So how are you feeling?" I'm like, "Oh, it's not that bad." But in reality, like my life was seriously being impacted. And so he's like, okay, yeah, no, you're fine. Like that's a normal amount of anxiety. And I would go home just in tears. And it's like, I like yourself just like down. I'm like, I'm fine. And it took me like going in and I like broke down. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. And I'm like, my doctor was very apologetic, but I was like, it's not even like, it was me too, because like I downplayed everything. I'm strong, I'm fine. And it doesn't need to be that way. And I know that I'm speaking to the anxiety piece because that's the experience that I had. But when it comes to birth control as well and advocating for yourself, it's like, don't be afraid to share how you're feeling and write that script out if you tend to downplay in the moment, because it can be incredibly discouraging and emotionally draining.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have learned that,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to stop saying
Mm-hmm.
we're okay when sometimes we're not okay. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if there's like something programmed into us to not be problematic or not cause issues or not make a big scene or anything, but that definitely comes from a lot of my perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
tendencies and roots of like not causing any problems for anyone, being a people pleaser. So I was just like, no, like let everyone else go in front of me. And here I was sitting in a corner, like vomiting my guts out with a cyst bursting. So
Yeah.
I have learned that no, when I'm really not feeling good, and if a doctor is brushing me off, go to a new doctor. And I learned this recently after one of my coworkers just passed away from stage 4 ovarian cancer. And she had back pain and hip pain for over a year. And the doctors brushed her off. And, she saw a chiropractor and osteopaths and different things because she thought it was her back and her spine.
Mm.
And then after finally going to the emergency room, they did some sort of scan and saw that there was a big old tumor. She had ovarian cancer, stage 4, and then passed, I think, 6 months later, in her young 30s. And so after that, my mom was like, okay, if you're experiencing any pain, you better get yourself to the doctor. And recently, all of a sudden in the last 6 months, my periods like totally did a 180 and changed. And all of a sudden, like heavier periods, painful periods, like totally after many, many years of feeling really awesome. So I finally went to the doctor a couple times, and I had to stand up for myself and be like, listen, I have a history of, like all sorts of hormonal issues and emergency surgery and things like that. So I got myself an ultrasound after pushing for it, to come to find out that I have a fibroid that is not on top of my uterus or in my uterus, but it's like sitting between the tissues and growing. And then I have my right ovary is polycystic. So I was like, oh, of course, this is explaining everything. But I did have to really advocate for myself to be like, something's wrong. I need answers. Like, I don't want to just blindly take supplements. And so I finally got some answers, and I was like, okay, this is a lesson. Let it be learned that when something's not right, stand up for yourself, and you deserve, access to healthcare, and you deserve to know what's wrong with your body, and you deserve to get some answers. And so let this be a lesson. If you need to hear it today while you're listening, if you're not feeling good, get some help.
Yeah. I know, like, all too often I hear from clients like going to see a doctor because they, are experiencing XYZ, and, they're told that like everything is normal. And so I hear it all the time. And you know what? Yeah. Get more tests, keep advocating for yourself. And I mean, I know our conversation is swaying a little bit, but like, this is a really important one to have too, especially when it comes to dealing with these hormone imbalances, and whether it is that or not, but like, making sure that you're not, you're being heard, and you are advocating for yourself. And it might take more than one visit to do that, because I've been there myself, and you have to kind of work up the nerves sometimes. But if you're listening, advocate for yourself, and don't stop until you get your answers, and find someone who will listen. I have heard so many times from clients, even on a digestive standpoint, because, I work with people who are dealing with digestive health issues, gut health issues, stress, burnout, anxiety, that type of thing. And they'll be like, I can't believe like you're the first person who has listened to me. Like, I have been to my doctor so many times for digestive issues, IBS, and they give me a generic name of a probiotic from the grocery store, and tell me to eat more fiber. And here I am, really listening to them and talking about the different types of fiber and why certain types might be better than others, and what foods to focus on. And they're like, they were just like mind blown, because they were just given the total brush off to this condition that is very life altering sometimes. And it's very discouraging.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Well, shifting back to the birth control, not that I think that that was a really important conversation to have, but that was excellent advice for people who are thinking about coming off the pill, and, your body, you should advocate for yourself. But say they have gone to their doctor, they have, they're stopping the pill, they are taking the IUD out. How can this listener support themselves during this process, to make it, I guess, like, chatting about the first time you tried coming off didn't go well versus the second time. What did you do differently?
I basically educated myself, and then saw every practitioner under the sun, read every book, listened to every single podcast, and then created my own little toolbox. So this is the toolbox now that I use with my clients when they're ready to come off. Very similar of what it looks like to if they want to stay on, you're still supporting all those pathways, digestion, liver, stress, adrenals. So if it's one-on-one, then that is where we get to evaluate what needs, like what is taking priority. Is your mental health a priority over, maybe your liver? So what's kind of that priority? Typically, first and foremost is if they're coming off the pill, deciding on a new contraceptive method. So typically it's the fertility awareness conversation. And then also condoms, nothing wrong with using condoms. So, and then using them in combination. So that's first conversation. Then typically we go into nutrition, getting them set up with a good diet. And we like to follow what I call the FPFC. So healthy fat, protein, fiber, and color. And then gut health is like right up top there, mixed in with nutrition and blood sugar balancing, because that is vital. Blood sugar is vital for hormones, and then liver to lessen the burden, especially if it was the pill, and then changing up some chemicals and fragrances in the home. That's a big conversation. Reducing toxins, sleep, like I mentioned, stress, adrenals is a big one. And then also if they do have blood work that shows thyroid issues, then we put thyroid in with adrenals. And so it's kind of dependent on who's coming to me and what their issue is. But I also love running the Dutch test, because that gives us so many answers. And that's a big one is if they don't have any answers from their doctor, is blood work. In Canada, luckily most of our blood work is free. So if one of my clients is from Canada, then it's like, all right, just pop into your doctor, get some blood work. Hopefully they don't fight you on it. Sometimes they will, unfortunately. Which I've had a number of times. But if that's an issue, you can go to a naturopathic doctor and then pay for it. Or if you're in the States, there's great websites online that you can order blood testing kits that you can do from the comfort of your own home, which I've done with a couple of my clients. And then Dutch test, which is no blood work. It is all urine and saliva. GI map is so wonderful if gut health is taking priority. So all those topics that we just covered. And then, sometimes they move around based on what the major issue is for whoever the client is in front of me.
I mean, that's a perfect testament to holistic wellness and holistic nutrition. It's bio-individual, which is super important. But yeah, you hit all of those umbrellas so perfectly. Let's like hone in for a second on like the nutrition side of things. As nutritionists, obviously, it's a big topic of conversation. What would you say? I know you mentioned, nutritionally, we want to support those nutrient depletions imparted by the pill, like foods rich in B vitamins, vitamin C, our antioxidants, our fat, protein, fiber, and colorful fruits and veggies, which is all super important. What would you say nutritionally are maybe like a few big things or take home messages for people who are like, yeah, maybe I do need to make a bit of a shift in my nutrition, but I don't know where to start?
Such a good question. Well, nutrition plays such a big role. That's why in both examples, I mentioned nutrition first and foremost.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the foundation if you're building a house. Like you can take supplements and you can decrease stress, but if your diet is not good, if you're not getting nutritionally dense food, if you're going to McDonald's for all your meals, then your foundation, like your house, is going to sink. It's just not, it's not going to work. You can't out supplement a bad diet, as the saying goes. So that's huge. And nutrition plays a role in, like, for instance, someone listening might be like, okay, I've heard of blood sugar, but I don't know what the heck that is. When we think of blood sugar, it's funny, I'm at my mom's house right now, and the TV that we have gets a lot of United States channels because we're so close to the border, and Windsor borders Michigan. So I'm so not used to seeing medication commercials. And there was this medication commercial to like lower A1C. And I was like, you don't need a medication. You just eat better. Like you don't need medication to lower A1C. It's blood sugar balance. It's a blood sugar and insulin issue. So when I say blood sugar, that's insulin. Most people think diabetes, but it's also a big, big role in hormones, mood, your cortisol levels. So basically, if your blood sugar is not balanced, you're getting too many carbs, too much sugar, and you want to balance it out with some protein and fat. So that right there is nutrition, and that's going to govern So many different things. Like if you're crashing at 2 p.m., if you're exhausted in the morning, all that is governed by your blood sugar. And then if we think of liver, let's say if you're eating a lot of like chemical and packaged foods, non-organic foods, your liver is taking on that burden to get rid of all those chemicals and things like that. So there's your liver tied in with nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Gut health, obviously has a lot to do with nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And gut health is so essential because 80% of your immune system is there. 90% of your serotonin is in your gut health. All your good probiotics are in your gut health, which were just wiped out by the pill, and potentially antibiotics and other medications. So eating like fermented foods and lots of colorfuls, lots of leafy greens. So it really does impact every system in the body. Like if you're not eating good, you will notice. Or if you, let's say, go on vacation. I know you just got back from vacation.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I don't feel as good. Maybe you're less stressed because you're away from work and stuff. But then it's like, I miss my, my usual foods and like my greens and, getting my protein and things like that. It really does make a difference. And once you start to pay attention to how dairy makes you feel or gluten makes you feel, if you're confused at where to start, I would say booking an appointment with a practitioner to see what a good place to start is. Because maybe if you are getting takeout every day and ordering Uber Eats or whatever it is you're ordering, then, you talk with someone to see, okay, maybe it's one less meal, or maybe I try something like HelloFresh because I'm new in the kitchen and I'm intimidated by the grocery store. That's where you and I come in, because we can have a conversation and assess what's your cooking level, what kind of tools do you have in the kitchen, are you intimidated by the grocery store and you don't know what to buy? Let's walk you through ingredients and reading labels. And it's so dependent on who the person is. Maybe they're like a master chef and they know how to cook, but they just don't have the time. So then it's working with them on like, quick, healthy, more like on the go types of foods. So yeah, totally dependent. It's hard to say exactly where to start, but
no, that's a perfect answer too, because that's exactly what it's about. Like if you are really confused, maybe you should reach out to someone like yourself or myself, because both of us, we're creating these very individualized programs that's meeting our clients where they're at. And it's going to look completely different if all of your meals are takeout right now, or if you have like a seemingly healthy diet and things just still aren't adding up for you. I'm sorry, but it's going to look different on everyone's, because we're all so unique. And I love that you mentioned, like, we had this conversation just before we started recording, but like, I just got back from vacation, and, eating outside, your normal stress levels are decreased because you're not working. So digestion might be improved, but also, I was mentioning, like, I really did struggle with like balance in my meals and therefore blood sugar balance. As a vegetarian, it was really difficult to, when I was away, find those macronutrients, that healthy source of protein and fat and fiber. And it's something that like I'm always thinking about, because blood sugar balance is essential for our hormones and also for stress and anxiety and energy levels. And I really noticed an impact when I was away on that front, because it was difficult to find that balance. So those are some really great places for people to even just like think about, like, look at your plate next time, you're sitting down to dinner. Do you have a source of protein, healthy fats, fiber? Do you have more simple carbs or processed or refined convenience food that might fluctuate your blood sugars? And how might that be impacting things? And if you're confused by everything we just said, reach out. That's what we're here for.
Exactly.
I saw a really great post on your on Instagram for you as well. And listeners, if you aren't following Alex already, I'm going to link it in the show notes, but her Instagram page is Nutrition Moderation. And she has some really great tips for everything birth control related, hormone balance related. And there was one post that I wanted to chat about here, because it was all about healthy swaps to make for healthier hormones. And I
Mhm.
think that's a really easy place for people to start of like, okay, I'm doing this. How can I swap it to have, less painful periods and a healthier hormone balance? So what, just to like finish off our conversation, what are a couple like swaps people can make if this is like one thing they do as a takeaway message?
I love that. Honestly, I forget a lot of what I put in there, but I'll probably
That's
touch on some big ones. So, first and foremost, conventional pads and tampons
Mhm.
for either organic, tons of great brands, or a cup, which I love. I personally use a cup. I just got a new one, or period undies, which I'm dying to try. But I just heard that there were some microplastics in a couple of the big name brands. So I'm, seeing my options before I invest in those. But that's on my list. Regular coffee for organic coffee, or maybe something like Dandy Blend or a matcha, which I'm drinking right now for some energy.
Mm.
Fragrances and perfumes, and candles as well, like your conventional fragrance candles for essential oils. That's one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Plastic for glass. I feel like I'm touching on a lot of what was mentioned in that.
Oh, absolutely. I've got
Oh,
this
so am
notes
I
in
hitting
front
on
of
it?
me.
Okay. If
So
I forget,
no,
you let
you've
me
got
know
it
what else
all.
is on
Like,
there.
yeah, instead of, your conventional candles, opting for a beeswax candle,
Mhm.
thinking about your laundry soap and your cleaning products and how we can create natural alternatives. So there's not those like endocrine disruptors.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so those are some small things that are like lifestyle related too that you can focus on instead of conventional tampons, like you said, the menstrual cup, period underwear.
Mhm.
Trying some of those out. So because of the xenoestrogens or those endocrine disrupting elements in those conventional beauty and personal care products.
Yes, that's a big one. So there's a couple of apps I love for seeing your foods, but also your beauty care products. One that I've been using for many, many, many years is the Skin Deep by EWG.
Mm,
If you're on their website, it's called Skin Deep. They have an app, it's called Healthy Living. I don't know
cool.
why there's like four different names, but it's all the same. So it's by the company EWG, the Environmental Working Group. The app is Healthy Living. If you're going, online, Skin Deep, that you can check all your beauty products. I like the app because I can scan. So if
Mhm.
I'm at, the health food store, the grocery store, or evaluating my personal cupboard, scanning all my products to see what the rating is for EWG. Think Dirty is another really great one that I use as well. And then there's another one that I've been using. I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's called Yucca, Yuka. And that
Okay.
one is like food and personal care products. So let's say if you are in the grocery store and, maybe you're going down the chip aisle, let's say, you're bringing some salsa and dip to a barbecue or a potluck, whatever. So if you're trying to eat a little bit better, maybe you open up that app and then you scan in to see what the best tortilla chip is and what the best salsa is. And so little things like that you can start to see and understand. What I like about that is that it breaks down the ingredients and rates
Mm.
the ingredients. So you're learning as you're going along. So that one I like as well. And yeah.
That's actually really helpful. I personally use the Think Dirty app a lot, but
Yes.
I like that last one you mentioned for the food component because yeah, reading ingredient labels are hard sometimes and like even, quote unquote health foods sometimes have ingredients in there or many times have ingredients in there that like
Yeah.
aren't really healthy. So that would be a really helpful tool for people who are trying to like analyze those ingredient
Yes.
lists.
I will say it's not perfect. Like, I
Yeah.
can't remember what health food product that my mom scanned. I think it was a greens powder. And it showed up as a not so great rating because it said that the sodium content was too high. And I was like, oh, like we need sodium. I think it's just based on like, typical conventional
And
numbers, like an
yeah.
old school of thought. So I
Yeah.
was like, you're fine. Like the sodium in there is fine. Like it's loaded with like tons of veggies. The sugar is low. Like you need sodium as an electrolyte, right?
Mhm.
So I was like, that's totally fine. Like sodium, potassium, like all of it was in there in good quantities. And so little things like that, that's where, being a little bit more like having a degree in nutrition helps a little bit. So I was able to be like, no, you need sodium. Like it's all good. It's not like this is like fried chicken or anything. Like this is a different type of sodium. Like this will not contribute to like high cholesterol levels or anything like that. So little things like that. So it's not a perfect app, but it does help a lot for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's good to always go into things with like a critical eye. So yeah, if something seems off, ask questions. And that's awesome. This was such a great conversation and honestly, like so much valuable information for listeners in here. So I really do appreciate you hopping on the podcast with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun conversation, and I hope everyone learned a lot and they're not too intimidated by what we were talking about.
No, absolutely. And, for those of you listening, if you want to learn more about cycle syncing, I do encourage you to check out Alex's cycle syncing course as well. She has her new ebook that's coming out shortly. That's all about coming off the pill. Her podcast is amazing. The Holistic Women's Health podcast. I've been listening for a long time, and I have learned a lot from you already. So, and of course, follow her on Instagram. So many places you can connect with Alex if you're wanting to learn more about the effects of the birth control pill, cycle syncing, hormone balance. And, if you know someone who struggles with these things, pass this episode along to them and definitely send them Alex's way. So thank you again, Alex.
Thanks so much, Britt. This was such a fun conversation.
Awesome. Stay tuned for more on the Balance with Britt podcast.